So in this lesson, we are going to learn about the Great Revolt 1857. So as per the Indian historians, this Great Revolt 1857 is known as the first war of India independence. Whereas the British historians, they have called this revolt as the purely military revolt. In this lesson, we are going to concentrate the 3 points. Okay, the first one is how did the policies of East India Company affect the people, and the second point is how did the Sepoy Mutiny turn into a fight against the British rule, and third point is how did the British they respond to the Great Revolt 1857. So now we are going to concentrate the first point of the lesson. How did the policies of East India Company affect the people? And the first point is, so English East India Company, which is otherwise known as East India Company, it introduced many policies in order to capture the places, even in order to slunder many wealth from India. But that policies were not favored for the Indian rulers and even the Sepoy, even the poor people, peasants, landlords, zamindars, everybody. Almost everybody in India were affected by the policies which were introduced by East India Company. As I told you already, the policies which were introduced by British, it created a huge impact on Indian society. So most of the people were affected. The first group of the people were affected by the policies or the ruling classes. So now let's read the impact on the ruling classes. So first of all, let us know about the Battle of Buxar in 1764. So let me tell you, the place Buxar, which was once in Bengal and afterwards it was joined in Bihar. So in the conflict, English East India Company, they fought with Indian Nawabs. Okay, as a result, the English East India Company only, they won the battle. So out of that, the English company, they started to appoint many British officials. Okay, so many British officials in India. So they have given the name for those officials as residents in many princely states. So look at that. So officials in, what is that? Residents in many princely states. Many princely states, especially the word princely states refers to the native states. Here the native state is India only. Okay, so the reason is in order to ensure the Indian rulers kept their allegiance to the British Raj. So allegiance means their loyalty. Okay, whether the Indian people, they were so loyal to the British or not. So in order to supervise the Indian rulers only, those officials were appointed. So those officials, they started to interfere in the internal affairs of the state. So the duty of the king to look after the internal affairs. But whereas, so these people, they started to undermine the Nawabs and the Rajas in India. So that's why, so Nawabs and the Rajas, they felt that they had lost their power due to the interventions of the British officials unnecessary. So they wanted to give the full stop for their intervention. So now I am going to explain you very clearly. So the two important policies which were introduced by the British, it affected the Indian people. The first one is the doctrine of lapse. So the name of the policy is Doctrine of Lapse, which was introduced by Lord Dalhousie, the Governor General. The second one, the second policy is Subsidiary Alliance. The second policy is Subsidiary Alliance, which was introduced by Lord Wellesley. So now let us know about how the policy of Doctrine of Lapse affected the Indian people and how it joined the Indian territories, or how it annexed the Indian territories. Actually, as a Doctrine of Lapse, it was one of the policy introduced by the Governor General, the Lord Dalhousie. According to this policy, any state that did not have the male heir, so underline the word male heir. Heir means in Tamil we used to say varisu. Okay, so if the king he didn't have the male heir, would automatically be annexed to the company empire. So let me repeat again, if the king or the ruler, if he didn't have the male heir, the spelling is HEIR, okay, so male heir, so automatically that particular area will be annexed to the British empire, so after his death. So now I am going to tell you about some 4 states which were annexed by English East India Company with the help of the doctrine of lapse. The first place was annexed by them was Satara. The second one is Sambalpur. The third one is Udaipur, and fourth one is Nagpur. So these 4 states were joined, or these 4 states were annexed by the doctrine of lapse in the earlier time, and afterwards. So this incident is well known for everybody in India. So the next incident is from the kingdom of Jhansi. You know very well Jhansi, okay, the queen of Jhansi, the Rani of Jhansi, Rani Lakshmi Bai. So everybody we knows very well. So here what happened? So after the death of the ruler of Jhansi, so his name is Gangadhar Rao. So he was the husband of Rani of Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai. Okay, so he was died. After his death, so that place was annexed by the British, because the reason is they had one son. Okay, the son name is Damodar Rao, but actually he was not his natural heir. He was not his natural heir. He was an adopted son. So, what is that? Damodar was adopted by them. He was the adopted son. So, you know very well, if the king, he didn't have the natural heir, automatically that place would be annexed by the British by the name of the policy doctrine of lapse. So, thus, Jhansi was annexed towards the British Empire. So now let me move to the next example for doctrine of lapse. Okay, the next example is from Nana Sahib. You know very well Rani of Jhansi, Nana Sahib and Tandia Tope. So these 3 people are notable for the active participation in the Great Revolt 1857. So now what happened? Nana Sahib actually he was not the real son of Bhishma Bajirao II. Let me repeat the name, Bhishma Bajirao II. So Bhishma was the title given to the Maratha rulers. So our Nana Sahib, he was the prime minister in Maratha Empire, but after the death of Bhishma Bajirao II, he would be in his place. So that title, no, so that place of Bhishma, it goes to the hereditary based. Okay, based on the hereditary. So as he was not the natural son of Bhishma, so his position was denied, and not only that, even the pension, okay, usually we get the pension after the death of our parent. So here even Nana Sahib, he was denied to get the pension after the death of Bhishma Bajirao II. As per the subsidiary alliance, Indian rulers and British East India Company, they had one agreement. As per the agreement, so British agreed to station their troops in the territories, okay, in the Indian territories, in order to save the territory from the internal and the external affairs. So for the safety purpose, for the peace of the territory, so Indian rulers, they asked the help from the British people. So in turn the Indian people, they would pay the amount, okay, they would pay some amount for the maintenance of the troops. So this was the usual method of the subsidiary alliance. But what happened? So in the year 1801, the place Awadh, okay, Awadh, which was annexed by the name of subsidiary alliance to the East India Company. As I told you already, the year is 1801. So East India Company also, it was agreed to station its troops within the territory and pay for the maintenance of the troops. Okay, everything was going on very well. But what happened in the year 1856? So 1 year before 1857 Great Revolt. Okay, so in the year 1856, the Governor General Lord Dalhousie, he annexed Awadh into the British Empire. For that he gave a reason. So Awadh was not governed properly. So due to the improper governance, in order to maintain the proper administration. So English troop, it enter into the the administration of Awadh. So thus they annexed Awadh into their British territory. So like this they have given a silly reason. So far we have learnt about the cunning policies of British to capture the Indian territories. One is the doctrine of lapse and another one is the subsidiary alliance. Now let's move to the another cunning plan of Lord Dalhousie in order to capture the Mughal Empire. For example, so in the year 1849, Lord Dalhousie, he ordered that the family of the Mughal emperor to be shifted from Red Fort and their ancestral home to elsewhere. So what is the thing? They have to vacate their family from their ancestral places and from the Red Fort, and they can go and shift anywhere else. So this was one of the cunning plan which was put forth by the British. And the second one is, so English East India Company, it is stopped completely, okay, it is stopped completely the minting coins in the name of the Mughal emperor. You know very well, mostly in coins we used to mint some faces and even the names of the ruler. So thus the British East India Company, it stopped the minting the names of the Mughal emperor in the coins. And not only that, in the year 1856, so it declared that Bahadur Shah Zafar, so he is known as Bahadur Shah II also. So Bahadur Shah Zafar would be the last Mughal emperor and his descendants would no longer be referred as the kings, so but as princes. So thus the policies of East India Company affected the ruling classes. So now let's move to the impact on the peasants and the zamindars. So how the policies of East India Company affected the peasants and zamindars. Peasants means farmers. Peasants means farmers. So the land revenue system and the policies introduced by East India Company made the lives of peasants and zamindars miserable. Miserable means variable. So now let's move to the next point. Okay, the next point is about the Indian zamindars, how they were affected by the British policies. So especially the two policies which were introduced by the British affected the zamindars. The first one is the new land revenue system and the second one is about the sunset law. So let me repeat again, the new land revenue system and the sunset law. So according to the new land revenue system, as per the new land revenue system, the permanent settlement which divided the tax collected into 11 parts. So let me repeat again. So the tax collected, it divided into 11 parts. So from the 11 part, 1 part went to the zamindars, remaining 10 parts went to the British. So just imagine how the zamindars, they were hugely affected by the new land revenue system. And one more point is, as I told you already, the sunset law. So here also there was a problem to the zamindars. So which means the zamindars also resented the laws such as sunset law, which gave the company the power to sell the land. Look at that. Which gave the company, okay, British company have the power, okay, the British company had the power to sell the land of zamindars to the highest bidder if the taxes were not paid before the end of the day. Before the end of the day, if the tax was not paid, so that particular land would be sold by the British. So far we have learnt about how the British policies affected Indian peasants and zamindars, and now let me move to the impact of social and religious reforms. And we know very well many reformation was brought into India by the British. For example, the British, they encouraged widow remarriage and even abolition of sati. But these two things were not accepted by the Indian people in those days. Okay, so widow remarriage was not accepted, and even we practiced the the concept of sati. You know very well, sati was an inhumane activity which was followed by the conservative Indians in those days. which means after the death of the husband, the wife should die on his funeral fire. And the next thing is the English people, they encourage the Indians to have an education in English, in the language of English. And this was not liked by the Indians in the time. The next thing, in the year 1830, okay, so from 1830 onwards, most of the missionaries, they came from various places and they started to settle in India, especially to make the people to convert into Christianity. And that people, they acted very freely, even they had the power to buy lands and settle down in India itself. And it was not liked by the Indian people. And not, especially in the year 1850, English, it passed one act. So based on the law, the Indian peoples are allowed to inherit their ancestor properties, but the condition is they have to convert into Christianity. So these things each affected the Indian society as well as the religion. So far we have learnt about the impact of social and religious reforms, and now let me move to the impact on Sepoys. You know very well, the Indian Sepoy also were dissatisfied with the company rule. They were unhappy only. So there were many reasons for their resentment. The first one is the Indian Sepoys were not treated properly as like the British. The second one, they were not paid also properly. Okay, in these two things itself, there was a partiality, and that made the Indian people to feel very bad. The second thing, whatever the law which was introduced by the British, it touched the sentiments of the Indian. It went against the Indian sentiments. For example, in those days, the Indians, they strongly believed that if they cross the sea, look at the word, if they cross the sea, it against their community, caste and religion. But, so for example, in the year 1824, British asked the Indian Sepoys to travel to Burma by sea. Look at the condition, to travel to Burma by sea in order to fight a war for British. But you know very well, Indian people, okay, the Indian people, they were not ready to travel across the sea. So they thought that it was against their religion, community and their caste. Time, those who opposed the order, they were severely punished by the British. And the next one is, in the year 1856, the British government, it enacted one law. The name of the law is Service Enlistment Act. So what is the name of the act? Service Enlistment Act. So as per the act, so the Indian Sepoys, they have to be ready. They have to be ready always to render their service overseas. Overseas means, you know very well, foreign. So even they have to be ready to render their service overseas as well, as per their requirement. So let me explain again. According to the Service Enlistment Act, it was enacted in the year 1856. So based on that, the Indian Sepoys, they have to be ready always, even to service, okay, even to do their service in the foreign countries if the need, if they required. But you know very well, the Indian peoples, already as I told you already, yeah, the Indian people, they were not ready to go to the foreign countries. So the next point is about the most of the Sepoys, they came from the peasant background and their families lived in the villages. So automatically they were aware of the situations of the peasants in the countryside. So that conditions of the Sepoys in the company army and the situations in the countryside caused a lot of dissatisfaction among the Sepoys. The next point is a very important point, and that is considered the immediate cause of the Great Revolt 1857. The first thing is, so the British, they have introduced the new type of Enfield rifles. In that rifles, we have to load the cartridges, and before loading we have to we have to bite off. So we have to bite off the cartridges. But there was a rumor at the time those cartridges were greased by the fat of cow and pig. And you know very well, so according to the Hindus, we treated cows as a god. So whereas the Muslim people, okay, the Muslim, they didn't like, what is that, they had the resentment on the pigs, so that the Indian Sepoys, they were not ready to use those cartridges against their religious sentiment. Thus the British people, they started to torture them heavily. So in the situations only, we know very well Mangal Pandey, the great Brahmin Sipai from the Bengal regiment, he started to attack his offices, and finally he was put into death. So thus the great revolt started.